So Dan, can you give me any examples of the use of scenario planning by different organizations?
Well, one of the biggest uses of scenario planning is in the oil and gas industry because they recognize that the data that they have about the future is pretty sketchy. Right? So we know, for instance, how many barrels of oil, at least we believe we know how many barrels of oil there are. Back in 2006, 2007, we were talking, for instance, about peak oil, that we were never going to be able to take more oil out of the ground ever. And there were forecasts that the price of oil was going to go up forever because it was just a diminishing supply. And that was before the Great Recession. Right, and so we saw prices of oil that were supposed to be in the high hundreds, going forward, dip into the 30s and 40s, right? Because they did not look at the economics of housing, which drove, housing in the United States drove a change of economic behavior, which reduced demand for oil and gas. And so, if you look historically, and I've put a chart into the deck here, if you look historically at oil forecasting, it's very poor. And again, this is an industry that has more money than any of us can imagine, but they don't have any data about the future. They don't really understand, what all of the things are that are in play when they're doing just the quantitative side of the business. And so the people using data forecasting models are usually pretty wrong when it comes to forecasting the price of oil or even the demand for oil. So the oil and gas industry has used scenario planning to think about the future. One of the areas, of course, that's current is fracking and what's going to happen with oil shale, and that's a complete shift in how they think about the future. And so they are now rethinking their strategic plans. And you'll also notice that many of them are now looking at alternative fuels and how do they think about themselves in wind and solar and other places. And so you actually see some behaviors driven out of scenario planning of recognizing that oil and gas is not their end game at the end of the day, and they're really energy companies. And so that's a great industry for doing that.